time. Hello, everybody. I am Jeffery Parrish, Head of Industry Strategy at Introhive. And today I'll be chatting with our very own President of Go-to-Market, Tom Aitchison. Tom has an extensive background in successfully creating and leading world-class organizations, world-class revenue organizations, driving sales, retention, and overall customer lifetime value. So welcome, Tom. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to join us.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me, and thank you for everyone for joining. Appreciate everyone's time and interest this morning. I'm excited about the conversation.
Nice. So before we jump into the conversation, do you want to share with everybody a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. My background is 30 years in enterprise software. I hate to say 30 years, but I know my press release went out and it said 3 decades, so it is what it is. But yeah, I've been in the enterprise B2B software world for a long time, but I've spent the last 20 years really based out of Silicon Valley building go-to-market for hyper-growth SaaS companies, 4 of which were growth to acquisition or growth to IPO. So it's what I love to do.
Nice, nice. Yeah, one of the first things that I noticed about you when you joined was your open door policy. You've got a strong willingness to have very transparent conversations, which I love. I immediately felt like you were a partner and a collaborator versus, the scary big boss. So is this just your natural way of operating, or is this something that you've learned to put into action or put into practice over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I just love to engage. I mean, in the spirit of today's conversation around relationships, I think that's what every company is a collection of relationships. And it's always an interesting exercise to go through joining a new company, and you just have to inhale all that you can as fast as you can to learn about that company. And so I find reaching in and across the organization, both within and across our organization, I've reached in to have just phenomenal conversations with all the different groups, and then reaching out to our customers. And I think that the best way to learn is to ask and listen. And functionally, we just have amazing people with deep insight. And Introhive is a 10-year-old company, so there's deep insight here around relationship intelligence, around how we work with our customers to add value. And then I've just had phenomenal customer conversations around our relationships, how we add value, how we can add more value. And so that's my way of reaching in and getting up to speed quickly, is to ask a lot of questions and do a lot of listening.
Yeah, no, you've definitely hit the ground running. And as someone who has tried and has gotten time on your calendar, I know how busy you are. So again, thanks for taking time with us today. So like you said, we're talking about relationships. The discussion is specifically around shifting sales culture and how to treat your prospects and customers. A nice little post-Valentine's Day theme there. So what are some of your immediate thoughts that come to mind when you think about the shift in sales culture and in today's environment, how you should be treating prospects and customers?
Yeah, it's I love the question. I love the conversation. So much has changed just in the last few years. The race to digital and really just the speed of business and of engagement has changed completely. And I think customer expectations have changed dramatically. Our customers, they have less time than ever to navigate the process of investing in solutions that move the needle for their business. And so the way in which you engage in that process has changed dramatically. I even sort of react, differently when I hear you talking about prospects, because even the dialect around engaging customers in the journey to value, I don't even think of it as a sales cycle anymore. I think of it as a journey to value. And so it's more about building relationships and engaging in partnerships and establishing a journey to value where you're focused on helping customers solve their most strategic and valuable initiatives. And so that's changed dramatically. Like the buying process has changed. On average, customers have 10 decision makers, 6 to 10 decision makers, and sales cycles are getting longer, 9 to 12 months on average. And so, and yet in the moment, you have less time than ever. Like some of the studies would tell you that customers have done 60 to 70% of their research on how they want to solve a problem and how they think about solving a problem when they engage you. And 17 to 20% of their time engaging is spent engaging vendors or potential solution providers. And any one of them on average get about 5% of a potential partner's time. So, that really turns up the needle in terms of your need to be value added in the moment, when you have the time and attention of potential customers.
Absolutely. I love the conversation around value selling, because it all does come back to experience. And a lot of my background started out in the B2C world. And so, I spent a lot of years talking about customer experience and, as digital became more prominent, creating experience there. But what really made it click for me was the first time that I flew first class in an airline with an airline. And that made me see how that experience changed my perspective on everything. And even companies or areas that are not necessarily competitors in the airline industry, just my experience there set my expectations for what I expected in terms of customer service, customer support, and again, that overall experience. So when you think about the digital transformation that has happened and things, what used to be acceptable in the past that just doesn't work very well in today's environment?
Yeah, wow, there's a lot there. I guess it depends on how far in the past you go. Like selling has really evolved to solutioning and to partnering and delivering value-based outcomes. And if you go, back over the years of quote unquote selling, just anything I suppose with the word cold in front of it, cold calling, cold prospecting, coming in cold now is completely unacceptable. So with all of the digital channels and access to information that everybody has, with transparency of information about customers, you need to arrive at the table informed and have a perspective on how what you do can impact their ability to achieve their most strategic initiatives. So, even just years ago, solution selling, talking about discovery, the big question used to be what keeps you awake at night. But if you were to arrive at a conversation with a company today, I just think it's unacceptable to be asking somebody what keeps them awake at night and what their challenges are with no context, in advance, because all of that information is so readily available. And so customers are expecting you to know me. You talk about being in first class or having a personalized experience. Customers' expectations are that you know them, that you know their industry, that you have an informed conversation. And again, that window of opportunity to make an impact with a potential partner slash customer is so small that you have to sort of arrive prepared, to be prepared in the moment to deliver value, anywhere in the conversation throughout the buyer journey. And then I think that's just the other thing that's changed dramatically is there are dozens, if not hundreds, of sales processes out there for the selling organizations. And they're really focused on your organization, your process, your gates, what you want to achieve. And that's, that's old news, right? It's now about the buying process. It's about buyer enablement. It's about orienting yourself, through the lens of the customer and what they need to achieve, and coming prepared to put your solution in the context of how it's most valuable to them solving their problems and initiatives. So a lot has changed in terms of everything from arriving at the conversation to servicing the customer journey throughout that process. But it's definitely, the customer has a different set of expectations and is driving that process. And it's not a sales gated step-by-step process. It's about engaging and achieving value-based outcomes together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that point up, because in my days of being a technology buyer, I remember having to tell sales reps or account executives at times, I know it's end of quarter. However, I'm not as concerned about your quota. Like we've got things going on in our company, and this is our initiative, and we have to focus on the timing that we have set. And so I think it's really important that as sales organizations, we do remain focused on what's going on within the customer's organization, and again allow them to drive the timing and everything. And it's a tough balance, because again, we do need to hit metrics and numbers and things. So when you think about that, just in terms of deal management and kind of the process that is so heavily ingrained into sales culture, what are some of those old tactics, or maybe that are now thought of as bad habits, that are affecting customer experience?
Yeah, well, I just think it's funny when when you talk about deal management. I don't think that most customers like to think of them as your next deal, right? And so it's all about getting away from being the mentality of make the sale, sell your product, be transactional, close the customer. Customers don't get up in the morning looking to be closed or to be your next deal, and so it's completely flipping the lens. It's like advice to salespeople is actually to stop selling, and start solutioning. If you're in the B2B enterprise arena, there are certainly, some products in the world that are utility based, one and done products that are transactional, but that's not certainly the world we live in or where I've spent the bulk of my time. And so when you are doing business with Fortune companies and large organizations, it's a different conversation. It's a different engagement. It's a different process. And so it's getting away from the transactional conversation. Now, the other, I mentioned that I've been in SaaS for 20 some odd years, and software as a service. If anyone's joined us today who's not in the SaaS arena, but software as a service, which has been a phenomenal evolution, not just for businesses to achieve more efficiently and effectively and to get access to new services much more readily and much more cost effectively and achieve much faster time to value. But SaaS in and of itself has changed the dialogue, because SaaS is a renewal and subscription based model whereby you're constantly earning the right to do business with a customer. In a SaaS world, your customer can choose not to renew their subscription. They can effectively fire you on an annual basis. And so, it's been healthy for the world of customer engagement and quote unquote vendor engagement with customers, because we now have to orient ourselves around complete customer alignment from the beginning of the relationship. There's something called the revenue bow tie. So from interest to advocacy, all the ways in which you arm yourself to add value and be engaged with the customer has to be high value. It has to be relevant. It has to be informed. It has to be informed with intelligence that's relevant across the entire organization and across the entire journey, so that it's about helping them discover a solution, implement a solution, realize the value of that solution, expand the solution, and be an advocate for not just within the organization expanding the solution, but referring it to others. And so in order to make that SaaS, what's called the SaaS flywheel or the revenue bow tie work, you have to completely engage customers in a high value or value added respect throughout that journey.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing point, because as head of industry, my team, we look at the different industries and how they operate. And you're mentioning SaaS, and traditionally SaaS software technology companies have been heavily acquisition focused. But like you said, in a SaaS model, you have to constantly re-win the customer over and over. So you have to be focused on value and really growing. But where one of the things that we have to take into account is today technology, again, they're very acquisition focused, and the shift and the trend is moving to be more retention and growth focused to support that SaaS model. So we have to understand where they are today, where they're going for tomorrow, and how relationships fit into those strategies versus like pro services industries, which, they're all about relationships. They know it's about continuous growth, selling more projects, and just keeping that collaboration and work going with their clients. And so as we as Introhive strive to know our customer and kind of know what they're challenged with, it's my team. We go out and we make sure that we understand the culture and some of the trends that are affecting each industry, so we can go out and not have to spend so much time in discovery, asking these questions that someone would expect us to already know about their business and kind of the environment and the culture of their business. So all of this brings us to this term that I hear a lot, customer centricity. So, as you being a very seasoned professional with, an astronomical amount of experience in sales, how would you define customer centricity?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a short definition, which is just looking at the world through the customer's lens. I think one word or description that you probably don't think of often in terms of the context of the selling arena, but it's empathy. It's empathizing with the customer and viewing their challenges through their lens. It's stepping across the table and viewing their challenges, sort of standing in their shoes, sitting where they sit, but it's looking at things through their lens, through their time frame, through their budget time frame, through their resource allocation, through their partnerships. Looking at a customer, like the next level is looking at a customer's customer and helping them drive revenue acceleration and success in their business with their customers. And so, we talk a lot about being customer centric, driving value. In order to do that, you have to understand how to align yourself with the customer, which is where we spend time, and how I get to Introhive, having spent 30 years in the selling arena, is that we bring a whole new dimension to the insight around customer relationships, so that you have organizational alignment, you have insight into who you're dealing with, how they're aligned, what their level of engagement is, who knows them, who are they, who do they know, how do they engage. The more that you can understand about the customer and how they're connected within their organization, with your organization, and what their temperature is in terms of level of engagement, and how they engage and through which channels they engage with. The more you understand about the customer and customer relationships, the more customer centric you can be, the more you can step across to their side with an understanding and empathy towards where you're meeting them in their moment or in their customer journey in terms of what they need to achieve. And so, it's far beyond personalization, right? You talked about the consumer journey, where personalization, became a big thing. And I get personalized emails on a daily basis as an executive. I get the outreach from many companies. And I say that, almost tongue in cheek. Personalized, at times means you found my name and you know my name and my title. And so customer centricity is far beyond, surface level personalization. It's about understanding where that customer is relative to their customer base, their industry, their challenges, and then their organization. Because so much of the buyer journey is about, sometimes we're helping a customer understand how to navigate their own organization. Sometimes we're teaching the customer how to buy. Certainly some companies are very adept at buying large, sophisticated, transformational solutions, and others look to us to partner with them to help them navigate the solution and their organization. And so our insight into all the different stakeholders in an organization, how they're interconnected, helps them manage, both on our side and their side, the multi-stakeholder sale. I talked about, having 6 to 10 decision makers in virtually every sale. It's very rare, it's certainly in the enterprise B2B world, that you are ever going to be selling or solutioning with a potential customer where you have a decision maker. And so the whole, the complexity of the multi-decision maker sale, also dialed up just by turbulent times, makes the decision-making process complex, and then the scrutiny is higher than ever. And so having an understanding of their organization so that you can navigate it and you can help them navigate it, and you understand all the interrelationships relative to making decisions, is super impactful, and it's required.
Yeah, no, I think that deserves to be highlighted for all the sales professionals on the call. Make sure that you understand and respect your customer's process, so that you can be of service to them. And I think that goes into kind of the ideas around consultative selling, and again, just helping save time. So when we think about shifting now to, again, helping support our customers as they go through the buying process, do you think there are any objectives for sales professionals that need to change, to kind of support this shift over to being more customer centric?
Well, certainly that depends on where you're starting as a sales professional. I mean, I've seen just phenomenal organizations who were ahead of the game in terms of selling or solutioning value-based outcomes with customers, but that's what needs to change. So ironically, if you're a sales professional and you need to, quote unquote, you hit a quota, you have an assigned goal, you need to sell more. It's like, stop thinking about selling and start thinking about building value-added relationships where you're helping a customer solve their problem. The most interesting thing are all of the benefits for the sales individual that come from relationship and value-based selling, is that the customers ultimately, if they have strong relationships and they have trust in your relationship, they have the confidence in your ability to execute, they know that you understand have customer centricity, you understand their initiative and their outcomes, they'll pay more. They'll pay more. They'll stay longer. They'll renew. They'll expand. So you'll achieve all of the objectives as a sales professional. You likely have to by partnering with your customer to help them solve problems, and doing that sort of standing on top of relationships that are grounded in authenticity and empathy and delivering value, which all of that is that's what we power as Introhive, that I love, is that we give you the platform to understand the relationship. We give you the tools to prepare for any conversation. I talked about time, just arriving at every conversation in the moment and being prepared with insights that are relevant to the customer, the conversation in the moment and across that journey is a big part of what we do. And that's one of the hardest things. As you sell across industries, you need to be industry relevant. If you sell across different roles in a company, you need to be add value relevant to the CFO or the COO or the CEO or the operational team or the ground level tech team. And so having information fed to you in the moment throughout that customer journey, which is a part of what we do, is super valuable in terms of being able to help the sales professional get away from transactional cold calling, or if you've crossed that transom and you're now into deep discovery, save you a lot of time and effort in researching what's most relevant to a company at the time that you're engaging them, and then understanding who you're engaging and how they are related to different people within your organization and across theirs, so that you engage them effectively at the right time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As we are talking about relationships, that just makes me think, if someone is coming to me and they're, selling a solution or presenting a solution to me, if you can save me some time in terms of the research or understanding how your solution is going to bring value, the more time you can save me, the better our relationship is going to be, from the jump. So I think it's really important to redefine how you think about relationships in terms of business to business selling, and the value that you bring to your customers, even in the sales process itself. So I think it's a really great points that you hit on. So as I think about it from an industry lens, I know that there are some industries that are more of a transactional sell versus, complex selling. So what do you think the main difference is for transactional selling versus relationship-based selling in this time where relationships should always be the focus?
Yeah, well, there's certainly a time and a place for transactional selling, but transactional selling really relates to a product sale. So it is solving a point in time, very specific, time bound, functional bound problem. And there are times when, high velocity product sales make sense. That's not sort of the world that I live in or where I've spent my time. And so if you're going to sell value, they go hand in hand. So we've probably used the words, value and relationships a lot. They go hand in hand. You can't sell value in an effective way without having deep relationships. Again, I would come back to anything that is of substantial value. And there's a difference, actually, sort of like there is value selling, which is just a product sold based on ROI and what's my ROI in return in terms of value for this product. That's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about value selling, I'm talking about value-based outcomes and solutions that are transitional, transformational, that move the needle for organizations where they're trying to solve major problems relative to accelerating their revenue, growing their revenue, maintaining their revenue, protecting their revenue, renewing their revenue, and expanding their revenue. All of those places, are based on having strong relationships, and because all of those things take place within and across different functional parts of an organization in the customer journey over time. And so you can't do any of that or all of that without relationship continuity and relationship insight and understanding relationships across the organization, so that you can navigate how you add value throughout those customer journeys.
Yeah, no, and even so that brings up a good question around, again, talking about relationships. Not to date myself, but earlier in my career, I remember when
Don't worry about dating yourself, Jeffrey.
I
Got you there.
but no, I remember, when I would think about relationships, it was, okay, we're going to take, the customer out to dinner. We're going to do all this schmoozing and things like that. And that's how we're going to get in good and we're going to sell more stuff. How do you think, what is the difference between kind of that old way of relationship selling versus kind of what is the new, relationship selling in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked a fair bit about it. I mean, the old relationship selling has really gone away, let alone the fact that, companies are committed to a digital experience and 80 to 90% of companies plan on doing business digitally going forward. And so it's going to be hard. It's a little bit harder to do dinner, golf, and drinks when you're doing business digitally. That's not where customers are. I think that in every walk of business, people are being challenged to do more with less, faster, and they have less time, for what goes with relationship schmoozing of old. But more than that, formal surveys with great organizations show that what buying organizations want more from a selling organization is insight. Tell me something I don't already know. They're in a hurry, have real problems to solve. They have real constraints. I think one of the things that gets lost with a lot of selling organizations, and we have a multi-tiered selling organization, and we have business development people that reach out to customers on an ongoing basis. And I share with them, like, when you are reaching out to companies, you're effectively interrupting them in their day, week, month, quarter. So you're interrupting a customer in their daily week, month, quarter, year. And they didn't get up in the morning necessarily looking to start a new project, look for a new solution, look for a new product, create a new initiative for something they don't have budget for, don't have resources for, and may not have time for. And so, I encourage our teams, and we arm our teams so that it's not about, we don't get up in the morning trying to convince anybody. We talk about old selling. Old selling is about persuasion, the art of persuasion, and convincing people. We're not here to convince you that you should be excited about Introhive. What's important is that Introhive can help you achieve the most strategic initiatives you're already excited about or committed to. So what's most important is we can help you with your thing. We're not the thing. It's about what can we do to help you achieve your most strategic initiative versus, call you up and say, have you heard of Introhive today? That's not the goal. The goal is understanding how we can add value to you in achieving what's most important to you. And the great thing is, like, we're working with some of the world's leading companies to help them drive accelerated revenue and drive efficient growth and drive cost out of the business and better arm their go-to-market teams with insights and intelligence around relationships and whatnot. So these are things they already need to do, and they're probably already dedicated. Like, CRM is a good example of that. Most of the companies we sell to have a CRM platform. They're already committed to maintaining customer relationships. That's a step in the right direction. But from my perspective, that's just part of the story. Really, a CRM system helps you maintain contacts, and it's somewhat static as it relates to relationships. We provide relationship intelligence on top of that, aside from helping you even automate the process of capturing thousands of contacts that can go into your relationship management platform, but then making sense of them and bringing more dimension to the value of those relationships as it relates to how you engage those customers. So
I love you talked about or made the point that, we are in many ways interrupting our customers' day, on a daily, weekly, quarterly basis. I think this is a great time because we just had a question from one of the attendees, and that question was, what is one thing a salesperson can do to get you to reply to a cold email? What speaks to people at the director level and above?
Yeah, well, so I would sort of distill some of the things I've talked about, make it relevant to me. I know the difference quickly, certainly as a sales professional or executive. I know the difference quickly between a surface level personalization that somebody has figured out, what my name and title are, And then I actually, get emails where there's multiple fonts in the email because they've, taken my name and my title and put it into a form email that has a different font in it, versus doing some due diligence to understand what my world might be, what industry I'm in, look at my website, look at my 10K, look at my annual report, look at the news in my website, look at some of my peer companies, and put some thought into how your company, solution, platform, whatever you're representing, can impact what is impacting, what's either helping you solve problems for some of my peers that I'd be interested in, and or how you might help me achieve the kinds of problems that I likely have, given what you know about me. But it's very easy to see whether it's just incredible how much cold outreach you get that is, like I said, about, please be interested in my product. Let me tell you about my product. I'm like, I'm always open to understanding more about solutions that can help me achieve the things that I need to do. Sales enablement for a large organization, revenue acceleration, automation, intelligence, efficiency. Like, I've got a lot of goals as a revenue leader that are pretty straightforward in terms of what I need to achieve. And if you do a little bit of due diligence, I think, particularly in this era, buyers really relate to their peers, to customer communities, to advocacy, to referrals, to references. So, if nothing else, it's very easy to, speak in terms of who else you work with, who looks like me, with whom you're solving problems that I might have. And I would be interested in that. And so, our customers are very interested in the kinds of things that we're doing with the world's leading companies that we work with. So what's interesting about Introhive is that many people haven't heard of Introhive, and we're still a growth company. And yet we have some of the world's biggest brands and thought leaders and innovators around technology and relationship intelligence who are leveraging us to drive their revenue acceleration. So when we talk to our prospects or potential customers about what we're doing for other customers, they're very interested in learning more about how we're impacting their initiatives.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And you mentioned, kind of that personalization, just throwing in title and your name. Sounds like what you're saying is just get to the point quickly. Make sure you let me know what it means for me. Let Tom know what your solution and what the value is for him. Because again, we are trying to be respectful of everyone's time when you're emailing, when you're reaching out, and again, just kind of get to the value as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I net out, like, every organization is a collection of relationships, and all you have to impact the output of that relationship capital is time and intelligence. And so, that's what our focus is giving our partners more time by automating many of the tasks relative to engaging customers, by automating their preparation, by automating their contact consumption, by relating those contacts to an organization that would take a massive amount of time to understand in depth, automating that so that you have time, spend that time more effectively delivering intelligence relative to what can add value in that network of relationships that you now understand better because we've exposed that for you. So it all hangs together as this, taking relationships and then applying time and intelligence to create output that makes a difference.
Yeah, no. And back to that question around, kind of how someone can get you to respond to a cold email. Be honest, would you be the one responding, or would you kind of send that off to someone on your team to say, hey, look into this? Because as you said, you get a ton of emails, you get a lot of people reaching out, trying to sell their solutions and everything. Kind of what does that process really look like?
Yeah, well, so I will likely transition it to the person who can impact them. I answer phone calls, and I love the selling profession and the way companies approach partnering with companies. And so, when companies are effective at it, whether it's a young person who's reached me on a cold call or sent me an email, when it's authentic, relevant, has some thought put into it, and because they've been authentic and relevant, I think it may be something that we could potentially use or derive value from, I will absolutely, network that email, network that person into our organization with the right people. And I've done that this week and whatnot. Um, and I even actually, every once in a while, if it's early morning and I work some strange hours, but if I'm up early and I get a really bad, irrelevant email, I'll actually, help the person by saying, this just doesn't resonate with me. So, which I don't usually have time for, but yeah, no, I love to, obviously we, like every other company, are looking for innovation, automation, the things that help us drive time and intelligence every day.
Yeah, no. So I think that's another great tip for people to remember. You heard it from Tom himself. He's likely going to network you into the organization if it's something that's going to be relevant and useful to us. But I brought up that question because I have my own personal experience around when I was doing the technology buying for one of the organizations I used to work for. And my title had manager in it. And so I would a lot of times have conversations initially with account execs or people proposing their solutions, and then they would kind of go above my head, straight to the VP, to my boss, because they felt, he's got the title to make the decision, and he would push them right back down to me because they didn't understand that actual process was I made the decision. He signed the checks, but I made the decision. And so going back to that point of respecting the customer's process, don't get so stuck onto the old ways of thinking that, okay, we've got to go after these titles because they're going to be the decision makers. I think, in many cases, the organizational hierarchies and just the business cultures have shifted a bit, and you have to respect the process and just be prepared to support whomever you're talking with and being able to present value so they can start to socialize it around their organization however they need to and in whatever way works for their organization. So I would say keep in mind, it's not just about the title.
Yeah, it comes back to the multi-threading of decision making. So I think that's one of the most powerful things we do is illuminate organizations, so who you're speaking with, like who they are, who they're aligned with, who they're connected with in your organization, how they engage, what their level of engagement has been, so that what the connectivity is, the interconnectivity between your organization and theirs, and you have some context around who the person is you're speaking with, how they're connected, who they're connected to. I think back, one of my favorite sales learnings, books, coachings, or whatnot years ago. But it's still a book available to anybody in sales. It's called Power-Based Selling. Jim Holden's the author, and I'm a fan of that. And I think of Introhive very closely related. Power-based selling is all about understanding the power base and how people are interconnected in an organization. And that is always evolving and always changing, which is another thing that we do that's important, is that as so many companies are distributed and remote and digital and changing rapidly, you need to understand like where your champion went. We have champion tracking. You can understand who your champion is connected to. If they leave the organization, how they're connected in a new organization. So all of these power-based / organizational dynamics related to being able to map out, understand, score relationships, give you the context that you need to multi-thread and to be more effective. Ultimately, it never ceases to amaze me that some salespeople in the complex sale get excited about latching onto a decision maker, and so they go narrow and deep and lock in on a decision maker. And that's sort of one of the easiest mistakes to make, is that I don't care, if it's an enterprise solution, there's going to be multiple decision makers, and you need to have visibility into an organizational map and organizational connectivity and an appreciation of what the relationships are and how they're engaged, because there aren't many decisions left that are being made by one person.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point that I hope everyone takes away. And just, again, keeping my eyes on the time here. We've got a few more minutes left, and we do have another question for one of our attendees. And so I'll jump into it. What is the #1 sales tip that you would give my team?
Be prepared. I talked a lot about time. I nearly said tongue in cheek, stop selling. Stop selling and start solutioning and partnering. Stop selling and start problem solving. It's sort of like the less energy you put into quote unquote selling and getting the sale, and the more energy you put into understanding what the most important initiatives are for any company, the more successful you're going to be. But I think within that, it's being prepared. It's arriving at every conversation from interest to advocacy to be the relevant, high value, partner in the moment. And so, we do a lot of that in terms of pre-meeting digest is something where we arm you for every conversation before you have that conversation automatically, and follow up on the conversation and capture all of the participants and all of the connectivity going forward. So it's like, be prepared, understand the network, have a customer-centric view of the world, solve problems for the customer, and achieving quota will take care of itself.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that is a great note to leave off on. And if anybody from our marketing team is on, there was a great nugget in there. Stop selling, start problem solving. I think there's a campaign in that. So take that away. But again, thank you everyone that joined us today and listened into this conversation. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you so much, Tom, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share some of your knowledge and expertise with us. And we'll see everyone for the next one. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Great. Bye-bye.